Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL PR man. I'm joined by my super cool co-host, Mike Smith, winning his coach in Falcons history. Good morning, Coach. How we doing, man?
Hey, good morning, Reg.
Man, I'm doing good. Great end to the regular season. And now, like you used to say, the second season begins. Everybody's worked together. They've gone through all the practices. They've gone through all the training camp. And now there's only 14 teams left. And I tell you what, it looks like we're going to have a tremendous playoff. And I think it's anybody's ball game at this point.
Oh, there's no doubt it's anybody's ball game. This is the second season. Everybody's trying to truly go 1-0. You know, it's a cliche. You want to go 1-0 each week. But if you don't go 1-0 in the playoffs, you're done. You're packing your bags and having that last meeting of the year and sending guys off, and it's time to go play.
You're right. It is. It's time to go play. The league has got to be thrilled with the whole scenario of how the last second of the last game sort of kept Detroit kept Green Bay out, and it wasn't really decided. The playoff picture wasn't set till end of the day on Sunday, and so I think it's gonna be an exciting playoff with the games this weekend. Seattle plays at San Francisco, New York Giants are at Minnesota, Dallas is at Tampa Bay, Philadelphia obviously has got the best record in football they've got the first round bye, and then the second set of AFC games, which I think are going to be really, really good. You've got Miami playing the Bills. You got the Chargers playing. I forget, my screen's kind of locked up on me here a second.
Chargers got Jacksonville. They're going to Jacksonville.
Chargers got Jacksonville. Then the Ravens play the Bengals, and then Kansas City. Obviously, they've got 14-3 record. 14-3 record, so they've got the best team in the AFC. It's a loaded playoff. I mean, I think the league's got to be really thrilled with how it came out.
Oh, they have to. There's three teams that are back in the playoffs for the first time in 5 years with, Jacksonville coming back in. What a story that's been this year.
Wow.
Giants, what a story that's been. In Miami. I mean, look at it and see, two first-year coaches. Actually, three first-year coaches. So, all three of them are first-year coaches and have an opportunity to play in the playoffs. And, in this new age NFL, you better get it done in year one or you might be out. You know what I'm saying, Coach?
As the Houston Texans, I mean, you know what? I saw a quote yesterday from Tony Dungy, Coach Smith, about that. I mean, he, that's probably about as edgy as Tony gets. He was really disappointed, and he kind of took the Texans organization and specifically the owner to task for the whole one and done first year. Obviously, last year David Culley, he gets there, they go whatever they go. He's out after 1 year, and Lovie Smith, inherits the dumpster fire, which was last year's team. They go 3-13-1. You coach football. You've been coaching a long time. There's no way a coach can implement his entire program in one season.
No, it's impossible. I know everybody's wanting instant gratification in the NFL, and I know we're going to get a little bit more in depth into that here later on, talking about the coaches, but it just blows my mind that there's been 2 one-and-dones in the same organization. That just speaks volumes of what's happening at the very top of the organization. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you can't say anything else about why it's going on. It's right. Something is not right in the Houston Texans organization to do what they've done the last 2 years. Unbelievable.
It really is. It really is. So you go from that to, yesterday, there was some good news after, the week started off with the really, really tough situation in Cincinnati. Damar Hamlin walked out of the hospital yesterday, which was fantastic news. I mean, here's a guy who, basically had the cardiac situation on the field last Monday, and, everybody, it galvanized an entire country, and everybody prayed for the guy, and everybody had an opinion about it. But, kudos to the training staff and the doctors in Cincinnati. This turned out to be a pretty good story.
Oh, not a pretty good story, an unbelievable story. And,
Yeah.
what a difference a week makes. But you can see how our society came together, not just the football world, but the entire world, and has been galvanized by, a tragic situation that's had a great ending. To see Damar walk out of the hospital and, hopefully he's going to have a complete recovery. I don't know that we specifically know that right now, but if he has a complete recovery, what a great story. And how much money has been raised because of his family and what they, and what they've done. They started it, this toy drive, and then it goes off. I mean, you talk about going viral. It's just unbelievable. And it's going to change the lives of so many people. It changed Damar's life, and hopefully he'll be able to play football again. But what a story. I mean, just cannot believe that, the story.
It really is. It was funny. He sort of, I don't know if you saw the story where he gave the hospital staff a little bit of a scare there. He's watching the game with his family, and they have 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in the same game. And he's the second one, he's cheering so wild that he ripped the wires out of the machines in his room, and all these bells and alarms go off in the rooms, and all the nurses are coming in, and once they kind of got it back in restored order, they found out from the Bills PR that the last time that the Bills returned 2 kicks for touchdowns, it was actually 3 years and 3 days to the day. So the whole power of 3, his number. I mean, how does that happen?
No. I mean, that's God's will.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. Reg, and I think one of the things about this whole entire situation is it's going to make the sport better. It really is. The NFL, it's a physical sport, and we saw last week how the crisis situation was handled with the proper medical protocols to save a young man's life. And that's going to trickle down, and not only for college football, but for high school football. There's going to be a lot of discussions going on across our country involving football to make sure that the right protocols are in place to help people, because football is a physical sport and there are injuries, and let's make sure that we all understand that there's the possibility that situation can happen again. We certainly hope it doesn't, but this situation is going to help the NFL and football in general to have better protocols to make sure that the players are safe. And that, I think, is the most important thing. And they'll get the best practices for all levels. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be changes in the NCAA and in high school football all the way down. And that's a great thing for our society. A bad thing turned into a good thing.
I think you nailed it. I mean, you've completely nailed it from the perspective that in right here where I live here in Ormond Beach, Florida, there's already discussions about, having an athletic trainer, or maybe increasing the number of athletic trainers to all the other non-revenue sports from 1 to at least 3 for every sport, including girls sports and some of the non-revenue sports. There's a whole school board meeting about it here in Ormond Beach this weekend, and they're talking about increasing it because of this situation. So I think you're right. I think people are going to wake up and something bad is going to turn into something good that, like you said, it's going to affect all of society. It is,
and it's grassroots, and and that just speaks to why we are being reinforced every day about football is grassroots in the United States, and hopefully, at some point in time, it'll be all the way around the world.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I know I've been sort of talking about my man Mike Tomlin all season, but I saw a couple of guys. I was on the phone with Jason Reed, who writes for ESPN, and he did a big night he did this season. I mean, when you really think about it, the Steelers woke up Thanksgiving morning. They were 3-7. Roethlisberger just left. They were struggling, and I don't think anybody had felt the pressure more than Coach Tomlin did and his team, because the Steel City is a proud place. They've had a lot of tradition of winning, all the championships, all the great players. But so what did Coach Tomlin did? What did Coach Tomlin do? He did what you always talk about. He simplified it. And so down the stretch, the Steelers go 6-1. The defense kind of picked this game up. And although they missed the playoffs, he's going to finish at a 9-8 record, which means he's coached 16 seasons in the NFL without a losing season. And he did it with Trubisky, who kind of has been sort of a journeyman quarterback his entire career, and a rookie who I think he may have found a quarterback. So, if this isn't one of the best coaching jobs in the NFL history, I'm not sure I've seen one then. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, no, Coach, we've talked about Coach Tomlin and the things that he has done throughout his entire career. And it just fell. It's a winning season, but it just happened to fall where he didn't win the right games, or somebody didn't lose the right game, or they would have been in the playoffs. There's teams with the same record that are in the playoffs.
Right.
And it just speaks volumes of Mike's pulse of his team to make changes, not only scheme-wise and simplifying things, but he has a good feel for the personnel. And Mike Tomlin has had a Hall of Fame career. There's no doubt in my mind that when he decides to stop coaching, he will be in the Hall of Fame.
You're on with PR man, the coach, talking ball on the BallFather podcast, presented by Sportskeeda. Black Monday rolled around yesterday. It didn't quite have the fanfare that it normally has. And I'm thinking maybe that has to do with the fact that there were a couple of 3 head coaches who were let go during the season. But right now, there's 5 open jobs within the National Football League, Mike, and those are the Arizona Cardinals are looking for a head coach. As we mentioned, the Houston Texans are looking for a head coach. Other openings include Denver, Indianapolis, and I think there's one more. I'm trying to think I think there's one more. There's 4 or 5. I think there's.
Well, you got Matt, you got Frank, you got Nathaniel Hackett.
Right, and then right.
Lovey, Cliff.
Right. Okay, that's 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's going to be a lot of speculation about who does what. I mean, obviously, Coach Payton has been tied to the to talking to the Broncos. They can't talk to him until January the 17th. Coach Harbaugh's been linked to the Jim Harbaugh from the University of Michigan's been linked to the Broncos. Mike, what's it like this time of year? I mean, you've been through it as a guy who was one of the most accomplished defensive coordinators in football, and you got your shot to coach the Falcons in 2008. What's that process like? Give our listeners a little bit of a sense of what goes on and what that's like, that whole process.
Well, it's an interesting process, and each club takes a little different philosophy of how they're going to approach it. But Black Monday is the Monday after the end of the season, and this year it's not as busy across the NFL as it has been in the past. But we have to look at 3 coaches being fired during the season, which is usually not the case. The case usually goes down a little bit different where it's the end of the season. So it's not a busy year by NFL standards in terms of five head coaches. I want to talk about a little bit about the Houston situation.
Let's do that. Let's get
in the hell is going on in Houston in regards to how they're hiring their coaches and not giving them an opportunity to build a program. It's happened 2 years in a row with Coach David Culley, and this year with Lovie Smith. One and dones. We've talked about one and dones last week, but I've never seen it happen in the same organization in back-to-back years. I just don't understand. That's showing that you have no loyalty, no patience, and no reasonable chance to change the trajectory of an organization as a head football coach. This is going to be an organization, Houston Texans, they're in a free fall right now.
Yeah, they are.
They are. They're in a free fall, and they have been for the last 4 years. And obviously, when you fire a coach every year, it's not a money issue. So, and there is not money issues in the National Football League. So, this day is on Monday and Tuesday. And I read today about a number of coaches, assistant coaches have been let go. They're in Tennessee. They let go of the offensive coordinator and I think 3 other. There's going to be a surprise, though. There usually is. Every couple years, there's going to be a surprise firing or resignation. And you mentioned a couple of guys. There's a little bit of noise right now with Rams head coach Sean McVay about moving to TV. We'll have to see what happens there. There's always going to be talk about Sean Payton. It's already started. Is he going to come back? Is he going to take one of these jobs? Is it going to be with a team that has a quarterback? I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the Saints aren't in the mix. What about Tom Brady going to the Saints and Sean Payton coming back? Because that would give him the opportunity to be with a good quarterback. And that's something that I think is one of his prerequisites about being back in the saddle and coaching in the NFL. So who knows what's going to happen? But Sean Payton is always going to be in the conversation until he's back in the league. There's no doubt about it. And
I think you nailed it. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, there's a long Associated Press story about shortcomings in New Orleans under Coach Allen. They lost a bunch of games. They lost a bunch of games they probably should have won. Defensively, they couldn't hold leads when they had leads late in ball games, and that happens. I mean, that happens. But I tell you what, you're right. I mean, the carousel is off to a little bit of a slow start because of a variety of factors. But I'm not sure. I think you're right. It's not done spinning yet. I mean, you're right. There'll be a surprise, maybe 1 or 2, and within the next 2 weeks it'll be a little bit clearer. But I don't think we're done at this point.
No, we're not. We're far from being done. There's going to be a lot of talk. There's there's smoke coming out of Michigan with an NCAA investigation. So there's lots of things that are going to happen, and it's going to be in the news for the next 2 months. Right. I really believe that. I don't think anything's going to happen quickly on Sean Payton. There's going to be a number of teams that are going to want to talk with him. I think Sean is going to be very guarded about where he decides to go, and it's going to be with a team that has an established quarterback, i.e. maybe a trade in the division from Tampa to New Orleans, and he goes back to New Orleans, and they have the meeting that they tried to have in Miami in another city in Florida. That one, could happen. Who knows?
Right. Well, you know what? We'll be here to check it out and bring all of our listeners the news once this whole thing kind of sorts out. I'd sort of be remiss if we didn't sort of change gears and talk a little bit about the ball game, if you could call it a ball game, the national championship game in college last night. I knew from and Mike, we both know this from having working in Atlanta, Athens, right down the road from Flowery Branch. The strength of their program, especially since Coach Smart's gotten there. I knew they were good. I didn't know they were going to be that good, especially with how they dismantled TCU. Did you see that coming?
I did. I didn't think it was going to be a game, and it's easy to say that now.
Yeah.
12 or 15 hours after the game was played. But what a dominating performance by the University of Georgia in every aspect of the game. Kirby Smart's got the University of Georgia head and shoulders above every other team in the National Football League. He's just going to have to figure out how to keep the players that he's got, because there's going to be a bunch of NIL money trying to be going towards Georgia from other universities across the nation over the next few years. They're going to use Georgia as the test pattern for how they're going to steal players, because it's going on, and there's a lot of coaches that are complaining about it, and it's going to be a mess. And I know we haven't gotten into the NIL like we really need to. And I know it's something we're going to talk about in the offseason as well. But what a story with the quarterback there at Georgia. Cinderella story.
Yeah.
Walk on to two-time national championship quarterback. It's an unbelievable story.
You know what? They just, TCU had a really nice run. They beat a really good Michigan team to get to the final game. They just looked overmatched from the very beginning. They didn't have enough speed, didn't have enough strength. They were out schemed. And then now, I don't know if you saw this, but Vegas has basically said that Georgia's got a chance to three-peat.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. They're loaded. They're going to have another NFL class that leaves out of there. Guys are going to be going out early, and they're going to go into the NFL draft, declare for the draft, and they'll just reload.
Yeah.
Kirby and his staff, they own the state of Georgia, and really they're head and shoulders above everybody in the country when it comes to recruiting right now. And when they get them on that campus, they coach them up, and they're hard to beat. Congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs and all the people there in the state of Georgia, and the fans that they have all across the nation.
Yeah. All my friends were texting me last night talking about, hey, listen, I won't be able to get back to you today because we're out celebrating with Georgia. That was some kind of performance. You're on with the coach and PR man talking ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, let's just kind of go down on this little list as we get every week from the boss. Boss gets some questions he wants to sort of get answered. Let's just talk a little bit about so I'll just kind of give them to you in rapid fire, and you can kind of answer them as you like. Speaking of, we're talking about college football. Bryce Young, who former Heisman Trophy winner at Alabama, had a little bit of a down year this year as at Alabama, but he's still head and shoulders. He and the quarterback from Ohio State, CJ, what's his name? I never get. CJ Stroud. They'll probably be one of the top two quarterbacks taken in the draft, this upcoming draft in April. Give us your read on which one of those guys could go first, or depending on what, I guess it kind of will depend on what the organization likes and how each of those guys are evaluated.
Yeah, you're talking about two really good quarterbacks that have played well in college football the last few years. Bryce Young, I don't think he had a down year. Everybody says Alabama had a down year. They lost 2 ball games, and I think it was by a total of 3 or 4 points. And by Nick's standards, that's a bad year.
Yeah.
So we've got to step back and really look at those quarterbacks as a league and really truly dive in and evaluate these guys. Bryce Young probably will be the number 1 guy, but there'll be other guys in the discussion. When I say the number 1 guy, Reg, I'm saying the number 1 quarterback.
Number quarterback, yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen between now and draft day, and it's going to be such a fun thing to watch with all the things that lead up to the draft. But he's athletically, he is the model of the type of quarterback that most teams are looking for right now. And CJ Stroud, he had to help his draft status in his ball game that he played in the bowl season. And it's just going to be a matter of going through the process, and there is a long process, and it's just getting started. I mean, they're going to take a microscope and they're going to put it up in different orifices around everybody. Yeah, it's being draft eligible, and we're going to look at everything that they've done good, everything they've done bad, and we're going to overanalyze this, and it's probably going to come back when it's all said and done. There'll be many iterations of who's drafting who, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if one of the 2 guys that you mentioned, Stroud or Bryce Young, will be the first quarterback off the board. Can't say he's going to be the number 1 quarterback, because we really don't know who's going to be picking number 1, even though that's already been set. There's going to be some wheeling and dealing going on this offseason like there is every year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, you talk about the number 1 pick. Well, the Chicago Bears have the number 1 pick, followed by the Houston Texans, who have the number 2 pick. in the 2023 NFL draft. So obviously Chicago is kind of set at quarterback with the guy that they just drafted, Justin Fields, last year from out of Ohio State. So they're kind of set at quarterback. So you would think, who knows who's going to go on and with Houston, what they're going to do. I mean, there's such a, like you just said, they're in a free fall and no one really understands what they're going to do. But, I guess, take us through, Mike, if you could, with the evaluation, if you like, because we, in 2008, we were picking third overall and we obviously needed a quarterback. Take us through that evaluation that landed us Matt Ryan, which sort of juxtaposes with what Houston might be doing, because they're in need of a quarterback too.
Yeah, they are in need of a quarterback, according to a lot of people. And I don't know that that's truly the case. I'm not sure how they feel about their quarterback and Davis Mills in Houston, but you would think that they'd be wanting to go for the best quarterback available. And the two that we just discussed, Stroud and Young, are going to be the two, I think, that are going to be at the top of the board. And you don't want to show your cards in this draft business until the very last minute. And there's going to be a lot of misinformation out there about who's doing what, who wants whom, and it's so secretive. It really is an interesting dynamic, and it's an interesting part of the NFL season because it gives everybody an opportunity to have an opinion and voice it. You know what I mean, Reg? Absolutely. We knew we needed a quarterback. We were just hoping that a quarterback was going to be available for us. And as we did our research and decided that we were going to take Matt Ryan, we just needed Miami not to take a quarterback because they were in need of a quarterback and they decided to take a defensive tackle. And when that happened, we pretty much knew that we were going to be able to get Matt Ryan, and he was our first choice. And we talked about Matt and in that draft process that we went through with Thomas Dimitroff, the general manager, and Arthur Blank. There's going to be overanalyzation in the draft process. There's no doubt about it. I watched every throw that Matt threw in his entire college career, and everybody was talking about he didn't have a real good percentage of completions. Well, he was playing with probably the worst group of wide receivers in all of Division I football. You watched the tape and you saw him putting the ball right on the number, and it looked like me trying to catch it. So
I think you're a better athlete you give yourself credit for, but I get the point. Matt talked often to us about how bad the receiving core was. I mean, he'd never throw anybody under the bus publicly, but he just said it got a little better when he started throwing the ball to Roddy White and some of that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And Reg, the quarterback discussions are always going to be the ones that are going to be most in depth. When we start talking about defensive linemen, offensive linemen, they're not as fun to talk about as the quarterback, because this is a quarterback-driven league. Just look at the salaries. Look at what the quarterbacks are being paid. They're going to get all of the attention. They're going to get all of the credit when things go well, and when things aren't going right, it may not be their fault, but besides the head coach, the quarterback's the next one that gets the blame.
Well, just to keep it in that same vein, let's talk a little bit about the quarterback who may be on the move. Coach, another name that we talked about, who we know is not going to be on the move. He's already announced going to come back for his 24th NFL season, is Bill Belichick. The Patriots obviously didn't have the season they wanted. There's all these questions about what's going on with them and the whole evaluation of Mac Jones. Give us your take on how you think that's going to go on with Coach Belichick and how they'll sort of evaluate their quarterback going forward.
Well, there's going to be a lot of discussions in New England in regards to not only the quarterback, but to the coaching staff. And there's a lot of questions to be answered over the next few weeks. One thing I do know about Coach Belichick, he is going to be very deliberate, and he's going to do his research. There's not going to be a snap judgment. And there's been a lot of discussion about the coaching staff, and there's rumors about Bill O'Brien possibly coming back, leaving Alabama. His contract is up to come back and coordinate the offense. It was a unique situation in regards of historical points because of how they took a guy that has never been on the offensive side and Patricia and used him as the offensive coordinator. He was the play caller, and they went through almost an audition with the special teams coach. So it was a different approach.
Yeah.
And it obviously did not get the results that they're used to in New Orleans, in New England. And you will see Coach Belichick go through the process of evaluating the entire team, and that includes the coaching staff. The quarterback will be a big discussion, I'm sure, in the offseason, and they've got some things that they've got to get fixed in New England, and the owners come out and he's kind of voiced his opinion. And usually when the owner starts speaking publicly, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. Yeah.
Well, you're right about, Coach Belichick's never going to do anything quickly. He's never going to, just make a snap judgment. He's the king of preparation, and I can assure you that he'll look at it and figure it out. And if he thinks it needs to look completely different than what it looked like this year, it will look different. We know that for a fact.
Absolutely. And I would not expect a snap judgment in the next couple of weeks. He's going to go through and do a thorough evaluation of the organization from top to bottom. There's a reason he's won all those Super Bowls, and it's not just Tom Brady. It's what he's been able to do in building teams, and he's the best in the history of the game. There's no doubt about it.
Coach, what about what's going to go on? There's, Jim Harbaugh is a name that's being mentioned a lot in the coaching carousel. He's been linked to Carolina. Apparently, he had a conversation, or his agent had a conversation with the owner of the Carolina Panthers. He every time there's a new coaching cycle, his name sort of seems to pop up, obviously because of his former playing days and the fact that he coached in San Francisco in the NFL for a little bit. What are you hearing about him?
Well, I mentioned earlier in our conversation, there's a little smoke coming out of Ann Arbor with the NCAA, and I'm not sure what exactly that entails. Is it a level 1 violation they're talking about? Is it a level 2 violation? Who knows? And Coach Harbaugh will be someone that will be looked at as a potential coach in the National Football League because he's had success. He's played quarterback. He's done a very good job there with the 49ers, and he's going to be in the conversation every year. It's going to be a tough decision for him, I'm sure, because Michigan is his alma mater. He's got a lot of ties there, and every year we're going to be having this discussion, I believe. But this may be the year that he decides, and the stars align, and someone wants him to be their leader. And it wouldn't surprise me if that happened in Carolina.
You know what? We'll check that out. It's always worth watching. Like we talked about, that old carousel thing's not done spinning. We're going to check it out. There's always a surprise, and we'll keep our ear to the ground and see how that whole thing unfolds. All right, let's get to the fun part, Coach, because we know we got to get you out here and get going. Let's start in the AFC with regards to the games, the wildcard weekend, which is always probably one of the most exciting weekends because you got all the games. And the good thing is I've already announced that I'm not doing any housework starting on Saturday. I'm not doing anything. The honey-do list will have to wait because I'll be watching football. So let's start with the AFC. So the Miami Dolphins are playing at the Buffalo Bills. I already know who I picked to win that game. I'm going with Bills Mafia.
Oh, there's no doubt. Who's going to play quarterback in Miami?
I don't think they know. I don't even think they know because Tua's had 3-4 concussions. I think I saw someplace where the coach said he may not be part of the discussion because he may not be ready. And then the other thing I saw with the running back who's had a really good year, Mostert, he's got a broken bone in his hand or something. He's got a broken. He's hurt.
It's not the way you want to go into the playoffs playing your third string quarterback and your running back that's been keeping you in games for the last part of the season. Isn't healthy either.
Yeah.
It's been a tough second half of the season. You know, the Miami Dolphins started out on fire, and it's been tough to watch because they're a shell of themselves. They're not anything close to what they were from what they played in week one. And that happens in the NFL, and they were able to sneak their way into the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to make any noise. The Buffalo Bills, I don't think, can lose this football game. I don't think there's any way they can lose this football game. Buffalo's moving on.
Okay, let's go to the second game. We got the 10-7 LA Chargers. We're traveling down to Duval, Jacksonville Jaguars, who didn't play their best the other night to beat Tennessee, but they won. I think Jacksonville's one of the most impressive and most feel-good stories of the year, based on how the quarterback's playing. Defensively, they got after Tennessee in that game the other night. I like Jacksonville at home.
Jacksonville beat the Chargers, and I think it was week 4, in the first month of the season. I mean, it was a beat down. They beat them down. It's going to be fun to watch the two young quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and he's going to have to play his best game for them to win. And I think it's going to be tough, and it's going to continue to be a Cinderella story for the last 8 or 9 weeks. The way that Trevor Lawrence has been playing. They are way ahead of schedule, as I've mentioned, in terms of what they've been able to do.
Yes, they are.
Build on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side.
They are ahead of schedule. And in the final game from the wild card weekend from the AFC coach, we got the Baltimore Ravens, the 10-7 Baltimore Ravens, traveling to the Cincinnati Bengals, 12-4. Cincinnati, we haven't really talked much about them, but very, very quietly, they put together a 12-4 season. The quarterback's playing out of his mind. Defensively, they can get after you. I like Cincinnati.
Well, this is a repeat of last week. And
yeah, it is.
I believe it's going to be a rubber game match for Cincinnati and Baltimore. I think they each won in the regular season. They're going to get an opportunity to do it again. I think in the AFC right now, the Bengals may be playing the best football of any. I still like the Bills. I think I still like the Bills and the Chiefs above them. But the Bengals are Kansas City's kryptonite, as I mentioned earlier. So if those two end up, playing against each other, you got to maybe think that they can do it again. But in this game, it's playing 2 weeks in a row. I think it's going to be the same result. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. No Lamar Jackson, possibly. It's going to be tough for the Ravens.
Yeah.
They are limping into the playoffs this season.
They really are. They really are. I mean, it's just they're a completely different team from an octane perspective with Lamar. I mean, they don't get the same production. They don't get the same production in the run pass game, and they can tell that they miss him. So I think you're right. I think Cincinnati wins that game. So we're gonna go the wild card weekend. We both are in agreement that Buffalo beats Miami. We're in both agreement that Jacksonville beats the Chargers, and then we're both in agreement that Cincinnati beats Baltimore. And as we mentioned, the Chiefs, who are 14-3, have the bye week. They're off this weekend. So switching over to the NFC, I, as an NFC guy my whole career, you got the 9-8 Seattle Seahawks taking on the 13-4 San Francisco 49ers, and you got the 9-7 New York Giants, who were obviously one of the surprise teams of the year, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who are 13-4. I'm gonna just say I think spoiler alert there. I'm gonna go spoiler alert right there. Go spoiler alert. And then we got, I think a matchup that everybody keeps talking about that I've seen so much talked about earlier. The 12-5 Dallas Cowboys are traveling down to Tampa to play the 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It looks so bad, 8-9. It just looks bad.
Not a good look. That's not a good look.
It's not a good look.
It really isn't. Got to be disqualified if you don't have a winning season.
I agree with that. I don't think you should be playing. But the rules and you have a competition committee, whatever. So let's look at these games. I mean, I think as quietly as and maybe it's because they're on the West Coast. The 49ers have a really good defense. They're on their the young quarterback Purdy's playing pretty well. They're at home. They're rested. I'm thinking San Francisco wins that game.
San Francisco's defense has imposed its will on Seattle. They've played twice this year. It's not a rubber match. They won both games. The 49ers are not asking their third-string quarterback, Brock Purdy, to do anything outside his comfort zone. And I think that's one of the things that Coach Kyle Shanahan does. He looks at his team and he looks at his roster and evaluates what they can and cannot do. And he doesn't ask them to do things that they're not very good at. And I think that's what makes him a great coach. He's not a systems coach. Yes, he has a system, but he puts his players in position to be successful. And I think it's going to be a 49ers win. It's a great story with Seattle coming in with Geno Smith and in the year that they've had. Nobody thought they'd get to where they are. But there's no way they're beating the 49ers.
Yeah, no. Completely agree with you. No way. So we got San Francisco.
I got San Francisco going. So we both agree there. And this game that you're talking about, your spoiler alert, it's my upset pick as well. We're in agreement, Reg.
Wow.
I'm not sold on the Minnesota Vikings.
No.
Not sold. And this is going to be a rematch of that Christmas Eve game where, Greg Joseph kicked the 61-yarder on the last play of the game. I just don't trust, and I haven't all year long, I don't trust the Vikings defense. Absolutely
not. I mean, you look at the record. That 13-4 looks gaudy. It really does. 13-4, new coach, offensive kind of whiz kid. Tom Brady's former backup. I mean, the guys got a lot. They got a little moxie. They got a little moxie to the team. Offensively, they got as good a skill guys as anybody in football on that team. With the receiver with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook and the tight end that they got from the big tight end they got from the Lions in the middle of the year. I mean, they're as good as anybody in football on offense. But I tell you what, they are a sieve on defense. They just hadn't figured it out. And I think Dave Ball and his staff are good enough on defense to basically, take a possession or two, pick off a ball, knock a ball down, get a turnover, return a kick. I think this is upset special, and I'm going with the Giants on the road. I'm going with the Giants. Yeah. All right. The last game is kind of intriguing to me, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you got the Cowboys, America's team, 12-5, going to Tampa, coming down here to Florida to play the Bucs, the 8-9 Bucs, who obviously lifted to the playoffs. They won the week before, beat Carolina down in Tampa to clinch the awful NFC South division. But then, they went to Atlanta over the weekend. I know the game didn't really mean much, and you want to kind of preserve your players, but they kind of stunk the place up. I don't know if you watched it again. They kind of stunk the place up in Atlanta, and they lost to the Falcons in the final game of the season. I don't think you ever want to go into the playoffs with a loss. I just don't think from a momentum perspective, you don't want to do that. And I think it comes to an end for Tom Brady this week. I like Dallas. I like Dallas down there.
Yeah, Dallas is coming off a lackluster performance as well, though. They both played very poorly in week 18. The Cowboys did not play very good on the offensive side of the ball. In fact, Dak Prescott really struggled. I believe he was like 14 for 37 for
he was terrible.
38 yards. That would concern me, but I believe he's going to have a bounce back. And I've also I read somewhere where the Cowboys have never beaten Tom Brady. Now,
wow. Oh.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Is that going to be in their head, or are the statistics going to, and the probability say it can't happen again, that eventually they're going to have to get one win? I believe that Prescott leads the Cowboys to a dominating performance on offense. He has a great bounce back against Tampa Bay. They just got too much talent, Reg. They've got on both sides of the ball, and they're going to break the Brady jinx. The Dallas defense is going to make Tom Brady very, very uncomfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
And when that's how it doesn't matter what quarterback it is, that's how you get them off their rhythm, is you make them uncomfortable in the quarterback. It doesn't mean that they're going to have 6 sacks. I'm not saying that, but he's going to be knocked down and he's going to be harassed all day long by that Dan Quinn-led defense. They're going to be coming after him, and I believe that they will prevail.
Yeah. All right. So we both agree that San Francisco is going to win, going to beat the Seahawks. The upset special, we both on the same page that the Giants beat the Vikings in Minnesota, and we also are both in agreement that Dallas goes down to Tampa and beats Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Well,
and I strategically made sure that we were together because I've already won the regular season. No, I'm kidding, Reg. I'm kidding.
You have.
I let you go first, so
I appreciate that.
People will be saying that, hey, I just made sure I was going to play defense and I'm going to win.
I think you're very kind to let me go first since I lost the regular season match. I tell you what, though, it's going to be a good weekend. The game should be really good, should be entertaining, and we'll be back next week on the PR Man, the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast to update everyone and talk about preview the divisional playoff games and talk about the news that's going to be made over the next 5-6 days around the NFL. So, Coach,
Reg, there's going to be lots of news.
No question.
The coaching carousel.
We're going to have something.
Yes, and you know what else they're going to start talking about is the quarterback carousel, because this is a quarterback-driven league, and it's going to be who needs a quarterback, who's moving where. So there's going to be lots to talk about, even though there's only going to be a handful of games. The news in the NFL never stops, and we get to talk about it.
Never stop, and we get to talk about it. Listen, have a great day, man, and we'll reconvene next week to chop it up.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Take care, man. All right, Coach.
All right, take care.